Our next guest is someone that I've come to know for years now, and I actually came to know him through his music. Maybe some of y'all came to know him through his music as well. But I think what's been great to see is how he's continued to add on to what he does. Right, a lot of times you might find someone and they might say, "Well, this is my thing, and I can't continue it. I can't evolve it." Where with Trinidad, he's been able to add so many different things to what he does. It only makes it better for his overall brand. And so y'all join me in welcoming Trinidad James to the stage. He flew in today. He's been around town. Where my full size brother at? Thank you, BJ. I'm good. I'm good. Oh wait, is that? Oh, you got hats? You know you got.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hey, y'all make some noise for Trinidad. Let me hear y'all again. Thank you for joining us. You had that crazy flight situation. You're all good though.
Yeah, I mean, I fly so much that it's a part of my DNA at this point. So you got to kind of be prepared for anything, no matter what. It's not your fault. You know what I'm saying? It's not personal.
Totally. So tell us a little bit about you and your upbringing and your background, right? So we know that, at least for the most part, you grew up in Atlanta, but you're actually from Trinidad and Tobago. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I came over to America as an immigrant at a very young age, probably around second grade, third grade.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived a lot of places from Canada as a baby to Jacksonville, Florida, New York, Atlanta, South Carolina. And this was like as a kid, before as a teenager. By the time I was a teenager, living in all these places, but Atlanta was the place that I spent most of my growing up days and kind of like molded me into becoming the foundation of the man that I've become now.
Yeah.
So Atlanta is always going to be right there neck and neck with Trinidad, but Trinidad is home, man.
Yeah, for sure. As you were moving around a lot, what did you think about that as a kid? Like, was that like exciting to you, or are you kind of just like, man, I'm kind of tired of moving to all these different cities?
I could be honest with you that I didn't really see it as moving. It felt like a part of life. It didn't feel like, oh, I got to make new friends because I always made new friends. So it didn't feel like, it felt exciting to like, what is this adventure going to be?
Right.
And this is me as a kid. This is not me literally thinking it, but when I think back about that time in my life, I never ever felt a type of way of having to go somewhere else. I don't remember ever having an issue with my parents. Like, I don't want to go to South Carolina or I don't want to go to, also I was very young for a couple of those cities.
Yeah,
so I had no opinion.
Yeah.
I was like, come.
They're like, you coming.
Right?
What was that family dynamic for you? Like, are you an only child? You have siblings? Like, were you the only one, like the only kid that's traveling?
Nah, man. So it's very interesting in my behalf, and it plays a lot into how I do business now. I come from a pretty big family. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't grow up with any of them. I grew up by myself.
What do you mean?
Meaning that because I was born in Trinidad, my brothers and sisters, all of them weren't born in Trinidad also. And we have different mothers, same father, different mothers. And so I stayed with my mom. And, they kind of stayed with their mom. And their moms, one of my sisters, her mom is American, so she's from Florida. And my other siblings, their mom brought them to America, way before we could ever form a relationship. So they have a strong bond with each other because they have the same mother. And, mothers, they keep things together. Because my father was a very, just a workaholic. He was also a Rolling Stone, but he was a workaholic. And with that being said, it kind of it put me in a place where I had to grow up by myself and figure out a lot of things on my own.
Yeah. So at this young age, right, you are figuring out a lot of things on your own. But one of the things that was interesting is you've been an entrepreneur for quite some time, right? Like you were like selling anime cards to get cash and things like that. Like did you have any examples in your life that made that okay? Like that made you think like this is a normal thing to do?
Um, my perspective is that when you're an immigrant and you come to a foreign land, um, you're not necessarily paying attention to the hustle.
Hmm.
You're doing what you got to do to survive. So survival is a little bit different than like hustling. Your hustling is like a type of work,
Right.
but when you're looking at it from an immigrant's eyes, it's like, hey man, I don't necessarily know what this is, but it looks like I could kind of do it. I'm finna do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been my mindset since a youngin' to be able to get bread to add to what was going on in my family dynamic with my mother and my father.
Mm.
Um, that just kind of worked out my way. That it started with selling Dragon Ball Z pictures that I would print out, like
Shout out
what
to
I'm saying?
Goku.
Like, it's just I don't know. It's like it's interesting what people would pay for. So it went from Dragon Ball Z pictures to Pokemon cards and things like that, and just being able to have that thing that it's not even just necessarily having the thing, but being the person that people wanted to buy it from.
Mm.
However, that was also a big difference
Big
too. Like
difference.
people kind of gravitated to wanting to buy things from me.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe my energy, it felt safe. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But it worked out that way at a young age. And I kind of just, without me, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't aware.
Yeah.
I'm just surviving.
This is what you were doing. You
Surviving. I'm
survived.
just doing it. And it became more and more of a thing of survival and adding things to my belt.
Yeah, for sure. Now, no surprise, I came to know you through your music. That's how I shared it in the intro. But a part of your journey is also very much anchored in fashion and streetwear, right? And for quite some time, you actually operated as a stylist at a boutique in Atlanta, yeah?
Yes. Before music, there was survival
Hmm.
and then fashion. Survival first because just coming over as an immigrant, that's what you got to do. But also when you get comfortable, I always say to people in general, not just younger people, is like you got to do what you can till you can do what you want.
Ooh.
And so, in the midst of me doing what I had to do, when I got to a place of like, okay, I got my feet on the ground.
Yeah.
My parents are straight for the most part. Fashion, because of the friends that I was hanging around with in Atlanta, it allowed me to start having an opinion on clothes and then an opinion on brands, and it became addictive. Just like how fashion is. Like to some people they don't care, and to some people it's everything.
It's everything, yeah.
And so I think that with fashion being something that kind of stuck with me, and like just being able to be a different person, because I came to a foreign place where people treat you like nothing when you're not American. So it's kind of like I'm always blending in or adapting type situation since a young age. So it's like, oh, if everybody wearing something like this, I'm gonna wear something like this, but I'm gonna do it my own way. So that's always kind of been my outlook on fashion, my outlook on life.
Yeah.
And so when I finally got to land my dream job, in my head, that was my dream job, or like, one of my biggest dreams was to work in a cool boutique per se.
Yeah.
When I got that chance to do it, I really jumped into it, and it really jumped at me.
It just felt like
yeah, it's like home for it was one of those dreams that I also could tell everybody in here that it turned into a nightmare too.
How so?
Because in the midst of everything that I learned that really molded me to be like really, really good at, selling clothes, running a store, understanding fashion from every aspect of, ordering for a store, styling people, whether it's like, normal consumer or celebrity, you name it. I realized that I was selling myself short with the dream that I set in the beginning of the journey.
Ooh.
So, I wouldn't have realized that until like I actually realized how much work goes into doing this job. When you don't have a job, you dream of all the cool things that come with it. So it's like, knowing that you're working in a cool store, dressing nice all the time, and people know you for it, But after you dress nice for 365 days or 3 years straight,
Right.
nobody cares about you.
Nobody
You
cares.
don't even care about you. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's in your DNA. So with that being said, that was one of the things after spending so much time in this thing that I wanted so bad
Yeah.
because I didn't go to college. I played a lot of sports in high school. I thought basketball was going to be the way.
Mm.
I lost my eligibility from having to transfer schools every year.
Wow.
So like that killed that dream, which was
Yeah.
basketball being the first dream. So I was like, man, I didn't
What
want to
else?
waste my mom had remarried, so my parents split, and I didn't want to waste my stepfather's or my mom's money to go to college to do what? I had
Yeah.
no like thing to do, so I ended up, working and figuring out ways to make money as somebody coming out of high school like really early. Like I got my first real job, which was landscaping at like 15.
You was out there.
Yeah, I had to wake up like 5 in the morning to go be at work at 6:45 with
Yeah.
other grown men who were like double my age.
Right.
And it wasn't easy, but it was discipline. I think I was just saying that to somebody upstairs that like when I look back at everything I've done in life that was like hard, was it hard? Nah, it was a part of what I had to do.
Had to do.
What was difficult was the discipline that went to actually be able to do it every day.
Mm.
Discipline makes the biggest difference in everything that we want to get to. If you're not disciplined in that thing, it's gonna feel hard. It's gonna feel like work. You're gonna hate it and yourself.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that yes, styling and everything that came with that job was amazing. But when I realized that, man, I would never own anything if I kept working for the person I was working for, then it became a nightmare.
Mm. And so at that point, you got, these wheels are turning, right? And, while you're there, the music side takes off, right? And that part of your career happens. But I would say today, right, it seems like while you still are able to make your music, also a huge part of your concentration is in the fashion and streetwear spaces. Would you say that's kind of accurate to where you are present day?
Yeah, I agree with you to a certain extent. I say that lengthy last part to say that that nightmare aspect triggered me to look at other aspects to bring into my life in order to be successful, and that's where music came from.
Okay.
I was like, what can I add to my repertoire per se that felt right, and could also get me to the wanting to own my own store. I wanted to own my own store.
Yeah.
I didn't do music to be famous,
Mm.
and that is why, to a certain extent, it worked in my favor
Hmm.
because my approach and my intention of why I was doing music or why I added it to the things that I was already doing for success was just different than every other musician in
Yeah.
the city of Atlanta, where musicians,
That's literally what they're trying
That's
to
what
do.
they do. You
That's
know what I'm saying? Like, and so once that worked out, referring to music, it changed my dynamic and my mindset of what I set out to do in the first place, which was just own my own store. You know what I'm saying? It's like having a black-owned business or owning your own business wasn't something that was ever taught to me,
Yeah.
or said to me at any age growing up. It just wasn't. That was the way that the
It
cards
was go get a job.
Exactly. Or, work hard. So I watched my pops own his own business now for 40, 50 years, but it wasn't in him to tell me that you should own your own business. It was in him to tell me you should do what I do, which is, do the same job, but not own your own business.
Yeah.
And I didn't really agree with the job that he did for me.
Yeah.
It worked for him, obviously, because he did it for so many years. And so, that was a disconnect there just between our relationship because his parenting skills was at that level and my goals was at a different level,
right?
And that is what it is. I don't fault it for him because now we have a great relationship based on things that we can relate to, which is music.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because my pops played guitar for a long time
that's
too.
dope.
You know what I'm saying? So we was able to relate on those type of things. But music, I say all that to say that music became something that opened a door that you would have never known would open for you until you actually go inside of it. So being able to crack it open, it brought me notoriety and, all the things that came with my first single, All Go Everything. You know what I'm saying? But more importantly, especially looking at it now, present day, to go back to what you're saying, it opened my eyes to a way bigger picture that you wouldn't have been able to see. You know what I'm saying? Like a lion is a lion, but a giraffe has a better view.
Whew.
You know what I'm saying? Like so it's like everybody wants to be a lion and the
Right.
king of the jungle, whatever. But I'd rather have the better view of like everything to come my way because that's what life is actually really about. You know what I'm saying? Unless you really want to be a tough guy your whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
like your stress, not me.
Hey, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I see how that works out a lot of different ways for people. But yeah, man, music opened that door. And so now to be back in, this place now with fashion based off of everything that I learned and went through before music and then during music, it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work. I'm always, like I said to everybody in the beginning, I'm always flying around doing something. I'm always busy.
Because it's your business.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody in here is an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Staying alive is a job. So you're an entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? Like you are in control of your business, which is your life. Yeah. First, when you wake up, whether you pray and be thankful for it, or you just conceited and thankful for yourself. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is, it's like you are an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And whether you want to be or not, because of life being a job. So when you understand that aspect of things, it allows you to kind of like, I think I said to Natalie or somebody in here earlier of like formula. Yeah. I've learned to like, man, look, find a formula to this madness. That's the only way you're going to be able to not go crazy.
Go crazy.
Exactly.
Man, so, as you like had this view, right? You've been able to look past like short-term thinking. You've really been thinking about like holistically the different things that you want to do and add it to this world that you're building. And this past year, we connected at ComplexCon where you were launching your brand Hommework. And that's where this partnership with Saucony came into play. And we started to see more and more of what your vision is in real life. How did on the sneaker side, right? Like why Saucony? Where did that come from? Like, is that a brand that you had grown up with? Like, why that sneaker? And why that for ComplexCon?
Well, the best version of this story is that basically social media is all about how you use it. It can be very, 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 very toxic, but at the same time, anything that can be toxic can be helpful. Is literally how you use it because these things don't have a soul, you do. So with that being said, that thing that per se we complain about is kind of you complaining about yourself, your inner likings, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So with that being said, Saucony commented under a picture that I posted back in 2018 or so, wearing some Sauconys. Okay. I've always liked Saucony, and it's always been a story there. Because when I came to America as an immigrant, Saucony was one of the first brands my parents ever bought for me to wear because it was affordable. Yep. It's a family brand, and so when they commented, I'm already doing full size run and things of the sort. And, it was kind of one of those things where I just saw opportunity there that made sense because I believe that every great brand has a story to go along with why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And that's just me. That's the old school methods I've learned and saw and appreciated in buying gear my entire life, it feels like. You know what I'm saying? Like I gravitate to things like, oh, why did y'all make this? Or why did you do the swoosh like that? Or why did you put this graphic? When a sales associate or the brand owner could tell me why, I was already going to buy it because it's a nice colorway. Yeah, but I want to know that makes me want to come back and support that brand again because it's like you're doing something for a reason. Mm-hmm. Things with a reason hold weight. Yeah, my personal opinion. And so, boom, I commented, I DM'd them right away like, "Hey guys, thank you for the love, but we should do something." I just went straight for the gusto. Hey,
shoot your shot.
Hey, shootyourshot.com. And they responded from the standpoint of like, are you serious? And it was kind of like left field. And I was like, yeah. And so we started the conversation then. And I didn't have any shoe designed in my head. I didn't know. I was like, oh, I should do a jazz. I just knew that we should do something because of my taste level and our history that you don't know that we have. Huh. Right? Right. and so they, we had a conversation. They was like, why don't you come into the office? I think New York, if I'm not mistaken. and we have a start the conversation. We started the conversation. Nothing really came from it right then and there.
Yeah.
But what did come from it was the beginning of a relationship with my guy Jason, who works at Saucony. I don't want to mispronounce his last name, but I want to say it's Faustino. I could be wrong, very wrong. So forgive me. I started a relationship with him and a couple other great people there, Eric, Alyssa, and they paid attention to what I was doing, even though we didn't have anything right then and there in the beginning. For those next years to come, 2019, I invited them out to Complex Con. I did a booth there for my album that I was getting ready to drop. So I did a whole installation for one of the singles, did like a nail shop type of thing, invited them out. They got the nails done, and they just paid attention to what I was doing. That following year, 2020, the pandemic comes.
Of course.
Boom.
Messing up everything.
It changes the dynamic of everything, especially for myself as a musician, because, I've learned one of the best things that this game has taught me is how to move as an independent artist. And so it's like every day there's at least 100 shows happening in your city that you might not know, whether it's on the Staples Center level or in a bar.
Somebody's performing.
Yeah, it's a lot of money in music if you know how to work yourself, so to put yourself in the right places and have a product worth performing. And so, I was mastering that level and understanding and really building a certain thing. And then the pandemic comes and it shuts everything down.
Right.
I'm very human about my experience when it comes to success. I took it tough at first because it felt so personal.
Right.
I knew how hard I was working in 2018, 2019, leading up to the album drop in 2020 and the things to come from it.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic came, it felt personal. It felt like it only happened to me.
It felt, because you're like, don't you see all this work I'm putting in?
Exactly. You're talking to the walls, you're talking to God, you're talking to everything that's some type of power of being.
Yeah.
And so when I was able to get out my own feelings and get out my own way, that is literally, I would say, boom, Jason calls me. I would ever boom. He's like, hey, what's going on, man? It's Jason. We hadn't talked in a while since Complex Con. So mind you, Complex Con is usually around November. They didn't hit me. The pandemic didn't come till around March.
Right.
George Floyd situation happened like the 26th or something, or the 25th or something like that. I remember because it happened like 10 days after I dropped a song called Black Owned.
Wow.
It was crazy, man. And so boom, he hits me. I'm out of my feelings about what's going on. Boom, he hits me like April or something of the sort. And he's like, hey, man, it's Jason. I was like, hey, what's up, man? I've moved up in position. I'm now the head of collabs at Saucony, and I want to move forward with people and brands that are doing things for the community, for real, and the culture. And I was one of those people. And he was like, are you still interested in doing the shoe? I was like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, let's do it. And, that is how that relationship and everything came to light with me. I got with my creative director, a young lady who's also from Trinidad by the name of Asha Paul from LA. And we just got to work, working on our brand and the shoe. And, I did a lot of homework, hence the name.
Hence the name.
To get to the place of having a shoe that we dropped in 2021, Complex Con, November 6th, when we launched the entire brand, clothing and shoes, and was to be able to sell out. It felt great. I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody that it didn't feel great to really put the work into something, really make sacrifices, and really see a result. It did. It felt awesome. It feels great right now.
It feels great, right? Like you don't go into something and put all that energy into it, and it would be a weird thing to be okay with nothing manifesting from it, right? It doesn't make it good, doesn't make it bad, doesn't make it wrong. It's somewhat unnatural to not have some sort of feeling about it. One of the things that was interesting when we saw you at Complex Con was I had passed by the booth and it looked like you were actually checking people out. Like it looked like you were actually taking orders. How hands-on are you in Hommework? Because it sounds like you all the way hands-on.
Yeah, right now as we speak, for everybody looking at me, is like I wear every hat there is to wear with owning a clothing business. because I also have my Dad Socks
Yep.
brand too. That's another brand.
Yep.
And I will say to, all business people out here and all entrepreneurs or anybody that's starting something new, I'm not saying that I wear all these hats bragging, because what's important is finding teammates that you can curate so that you actually can do your brand the way that you want to do it. I'm doing very well, but I know how much better I'll be able to do with when I add more players to the team.
Right.
And I have players there like, I can't do anything without Asha. You know what I'm saying? And a couple other people that's involved, my product manager, Edmund. I love that guy. My production guy that I do my commercials with, Sergio. Like these people are amazing. Like I can't be anything without them. I feel extra blessed, man.
Man, well, we appreciate you being here, just sharing these stories and sharing perspective, right? Because there's a lot of things that I think we can all relate to in here tonight. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was Hommework. You've talked about that being this curriculum-based brand. What does that mean? Like a curriculum-based brand? What do you mean by that?
So Hommework, and we put a kind of a funky spelling
Hommework,
on it.
sorry.
So HOMMEWRK. That's how you spell it. That's our website. It's a curriculum-based brand, and what I mean by that is every season, we aim to do 2 seasons a year, spring, summer, fall, winter. But every season, for the most part, we'll pick a muse, and that muse is somebody you should do your homework on. Education. Once again, remember, I lost my eligibility to play sports, so I didn't go to college. I barely made it out of high school. I don't think not because I wasn't smart enough, but I just wasn't entertained by the things that I was told to do. It felt like I was working to be working, and not working to be learning something that I can attain.
Whew.
So with me knowing that I went through that in my school days, with doing this brand, I feel that a lot of people look at my image and everything I've done musically in my fashion. And, people has told me this my whole career is like, you need to do a brand. You need to do a brand. You dress fly, blah, blah, blah. You should do a brand. And it doesn't necessarily work that way. I dress like this for me. I look like this for me, not for you to look like me.
Sense.
You know what I'm saying? My background is styling people, whatever. And when I first started styling people, they wanted to dress like me, like artists are coming, or people are like, man, I want to wear what you're wearing. But if I had something on in the store, the way that I would put it together. But that's just my DNA. I got my own fingerprint like everybody else in here does. So like being a great stylist is being able to dress that person's fingerprint, not put your fingerprint
not what
on
yours
them.
is.
Exactly. So with that being said and understood, it's the same thing with the brand. Where I'm at now with fashion, I've been through a lot of different experiences, and I've been against the norm and been making sacrifices and been stoned in the streets for my choices. But I didn't want to put my consumer through that because I knew I was going to cater to young ages all the way to, that age where in your 30s, I feel your ego can be crushed just as easy as a teenager. Just because it's a thing about, life. Yeah. Life just kind of makes a cycle, as we know, ever so often. So like sometimes you turn back into the kid you used to be when you turn a new age. Yeah. And so that is cool in a creative way, but also in like a mental focus type of way. It can be a little shaky sometimes. Yeah. Where it's like, why am I so sensitive at 30 when somebody's turned 35, or why is my 37-year-old homeboy so sensitive? Like, what I'm saying? It's just like it happens, man. It happens. So I say that to say with Hommework, I wanted to have a brand to start you on a journey and take this journey with me. This year makes 10 years that I've been in the industry and been in the game.
That's so crazy.
And yeah, you tell me about it. I got to wake up every day and think about that. Like, all right, but I think about it from 2 sides or whatever, where it's like, wow. And then another side where it's like, hell yeah. Because I really put in the work. You know what I'm saying? People know me for what they know me for, but I would not be sitting here with the spirit that I have if I didn't put in the work and continue to put in the work. So I was like, this next 10 years, because that's how I look at life now these days, is this next decade, this next chapter is like the journey that people decide to take with me. Now we have fashion and shoes and a brand in the mix. It's like, well, let's grow together. I don't want you to try and start out at the level that I started at from fashion choices. It's like, I want to do streetwear because streetwear is my real background. I have nothing against high fashion at all, but that's not my background.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I buy what I could afford.
of
You know
course.
what I'm saying? Type thing when it comes to high fashion. But streetwear is my heart. So I
Mm,
was like, I want to do a streetwear brand. And once again, what is streetwear brands known for? Comfort,
yep.
story,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Colorways, you
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like our formula that we do with Homework is we call it the triple C formula. And that's comfort, colorway, cost.
Love that.
Once those three things check out, I could sell that to anybody in here with my eyes closed because I've covered everything that's going to matter, any egregious that you might have or discrepancy that you might have with my brand,
Mm.
you know. And so I wanted to tie back to your question of like, why is this a curriculum-based brand and what that means? You know, these muses, when you check them out, like for this season that we're currently in, our muse is a lady by the name of Janelle Penny Commission. And
Mm.
everybody in here, or most people in here, might be like, well, who is Janelle? If you do your homework per se, Janelle was the first Black Miss Universe in 1977, and she
Wow,
was from Trinidad and Tobago, where I was born.
that's dope.
So, you know, when you take the time to like check out the pieces and see why I have certain things behind each tongue, you know, it's something that's worth your while. You
Mhm.
know, as far as like the homework that you're doing is homework that when you know actually check it out, it's like, oh man, that's what's up. And I
You
appreciate
learn
that.
something.
Yeah, exactly. Something that you can learn that you can have to take with you to give to somebody else.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when you had mentioned it's a part of what I love about streetwear. And, you know, in general sense, the commercial sense, a lot of those details and those stories that you're talking about have kind of gotten lost, right? It's gotten lost for hype. It's just like it's popular and so it moves. Do you ever feel like, you know, because you're digging deep into the stories that some of those things might get lost as it gets more popular, you know, as it becomes like just the it shoe to have because Trinidad did it, or the it brand to have because it's Trinidad?
Um, I don't fear it. I think that just in general, you just got to stay in control of it. As you grow as a business and you grow as a person, you're supposed to be able to grow simultaneously with it so you can understand how to explain it better
Mm.
as you go. Um, certain aspects of a growing business, some certain things happen and it grows so crazy that sometimes you might not can't keep up. But once again, to tie back to what I was saying earlier to everybody in here, team. If
Yes.
it's up to me by myself, no, I won't be able to keep up. No, I won't. But if I have a great team, and when you look at brands that have a great team like Union per se in LA, you know what I'm saying? Like they can't, you know, Chris can't do that by himself. Beth can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Hmm.
takes a village in order to keep the story right.
Hmm.
You know, and I think that once you keep once I keep my intention for homework the right way and my formula, keep that as a core base of, you know, why we do this brand. Because another thing too is every fall season, um, we do over a school's uniform that's in need.
Oh, word.
Yeah, so last year, mind you, we just started in November. So, you know,
I
like
know that's what I'm
yeah, you know
saying.
what I'm
Like you
saying?
just
So
got you
we
got
did
going.
that was a part of how we started. We did it's a school in LA by the name of Crete Academy, CRETE.
Okay.
It's off Crenshaw Boulevard. And it's a black owned school for homeless children and children from lower income
Oh
families.
wow.
And I found out about the school in 2017. They're 4 blocks or so down from where Nipsey Hussle, the artist, rapper, entrepreneur, amazing person, passed away on his plaza. That school is like 4 blocks down. Some buddies of mine who do a lot of different basketball activations, they hit me up because they knew we had a relationship
Hmm.
because I do a community basketball game in the Crenshaw
That's right.
district
That's right.
and called Camp James. And right. And Nipsey, he actually supported my first two. He was
Wow.
one of the like first like big artists, especially like LA big artists,
Hmm.
who was like, no, he actually played in the game and
That's so
everything.
cool.
You know what I'm saying? So we've always had a great relationship based off of community.
Yeah.
You know, we never done music together before, but we had a different type of relationship that I kind of even honor and respect more
More.
because it's like who I want to be now to add to my music, whatever. You know, when you go down there, it's like vinyl shopping. When you go in a vinyl shop and you see a cover of something like, oh, this is interesting. You listen to
Yeah.
the music. Okay, you like the music. it might make you want to go down the rabbit hole. Like, what is this? What did
is
this person do?
Right, right.
It's so good. I never heard of them. And then you find out different things. So like that is where my mindset is. Like I'm gonna keep making music and aiming and challenging myself to get better, and putting it out there for people to support. But to add to that, I wanted to add these things like great branding and community work and, doing over schools uniforms every fall season. So, we did Creed Academy. We built a court for my point of bringing them up in 2017. We built a mural basketball court at that school. And that's how I found out about the school. And when I found out what the initiative was, Miss Hattie, her and her husband, she's the principal. And their children, they have like 4 children. 3 of them go to that school also. I was just like, I got to support this. So anytime a brand was wanted to do something with me over from 2017 onwards, I'm like, hey, you got to do something for them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what it is, give them shoes and clothes, like figure it out or whatever, period. And so when I got a chance to do my shoe, and it just popped in my head, I was like, yo, I got a curriculum-based brand. Let me reach out to the school because they had a school store. So I reached out to the school to like, hey, can I take over the store, turn it into a pop-up, and I'll bring on the kids and pay them to work the store and teach them how to run the store.
Wow.
Because that
connects back to where you started.
You know what I'm saying? Like I learned how to be able to communicate with anybody in this room from working these sales associate type of jobs.
Right.
And having to, sell an item to somebody who might not know what Kid Robot is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And why this T-shirt looks good and why snapbacks are a thing again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whether I'm explaining this to a 47-year-old or a 17-year-old's parent. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those type of things where it's allowed me to really tap back in. And that school, when I pitched this to them and I showed them the first shoe, which was the red colorway you saw at CompassCon last year, the principal, Miss Hattie Mitchell is her name. She really loved everything, and she was the one who was like, why don't you use the money that we get from the city to just buy regular uniforms for the kids, the same thing every year, and why don't you design them for us? And it was one of those things again where it's like, let's go for it. Let's do it, And I'm gonna tell you, man, like I've been able to do some very, very amazing things in my life from all aspects. But doing over those school uniforms, I think it's like about 230 to 244 kids.
Wow.
It was one of the most challenging, but the best thing I've ever done in my life. Like the best thing, because it's like I get to go to the school and see the kids, wearing this confidence. I tell people I'm not selling clothes to you. I'm really selling confidence. You know what I'm saying? Because a good uniform, it gives you, think about it, bro. It's like, have you ever been homeless before? Like to be a homeless kid in 2022 or 2021 where social media is a thing and, kids might bully you in a whole different aspect.
Yeah, it's a whole nother.
You come to school with no socks on, no shoes. Some of these kids come to school like that. Wow. So to be able to, I used some of the kids in the commercial for our first commercial. It was just like, they really appreciate it, and we keep this relationship going. And so this year I'm focusing on doing another school, with the next school will be in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah. God willing, we just sent over the mock-up for our uniform pitch to them, and we just pray for the best,
I love the impact side of what you do, and how you said that was the most, it was challenging, but it was also the most fulfilling. And as you've been thinking about like your career and thinking about going into those things, did you ever think like you would start to lean so heavy into that side? Or like, has it been like the experiences of the past year that has made it that much more important to you to have an impact on the next generation, like those kids?
Well, the brand allowed me to do something impactful that felt entertaining to my spirit. But I was already doing a lot of charities and givebacks in LA with different nonprofit organizations.
Right.
Me and one particular nonprofit, and this nonprofit is called Love My Neighbor. Okay. They're based out of LA in the downtown LA district. They feed people on Skid Row every week.
Wow.
Every single week. Same day, every single week. Like literally every single week. And so they taught me how it works, and just having to do those, having to be out there with them, and then it went from me having to be out there to me wanting to be out there, and just kind of like finding a peace in it, because you get to hear other people's stories. You get to realize, like, is your life really that hard? Because this person has 4 kids and 2 of them don't have on shoes.
Yeah.
And they're outside. Like,
Yeah. It's a completely
they're not
different
going
perspective.
nowhere. They're going to across the street after they get these food, these shoes, these socks
Yeah.
from us or from me. And so, me doing that so many times over the last, I would at least say 5 years, me adding that element to my clothing brand, and with the shoes and everything, the collabs, and you know, it just made sense, man. It
Yeah.
made sense. It's like I couldn't make a brand where everything was so expensive that only a certain type of person could afford it.
Right. Because that would make no sense. That doesn't relate to you.
It's not who I am at my core.
Yeah.
So, when you see people wear Hommework, and me telling everybody out here what the brand is about, it's a community brand. It's quality first. And I want to make sure that you can afford it. I want everybody to have it. Right now, we could only do limited amounts because I'm new to the Sayains family.
But
You know what I'm saying? But essentially and eventually, I want everybody to, do their homework.
absolutely.
Or to have something that reminds them of, like, I haven't figured this out yet because I'm not doing my homework. Like, be that reminder in people's life.
Man, I love that. I think in addition to all of those things that you are doing, which I'm still trying to piece together how you're able to manage day to day with so much of the things that you're doing. You also started this Black owned food challenge. Is that correct? Right, where you have this YouTube series where you go to different restaurants, right? Like, tell us a little bit about like that experience and your connection to food, and why you wanted to start that series.
The Black Owned Food Challenge, and it's literally BOFC on Instagram. Anybody that wants to, check it out on their own, it's spelled out exactly how it sounds. Black Owned FC, actually. It happened in 2019, Black History Month. I wanted to. I'd made the record in 2018, Black Owned.
Right.
I knew that it would be on my album that I was working on called Black Filter, that I ended up dropping in 2020. And I was thinking to myself, as an independent artist, like, I always got to think every time I'm doing a new album of what's going to be my rollout, because I'm the one that's doing the rollout. You know what I'm saying? So I got to make the music and do the pitch to the consumer and to, everybody, DSPs, blah, 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 blah. And so, something popped in my head. It was like, you know what? I'm going to discipline myself to support Black-owned businesses more. How can I do this? Whatever, you know what I'm saying? From fashion, it wasn't lining up right away.
Right.
Because I wasn't running into those Black-owned brands that was matching my aesthetic, how I wanted to dress. I feel like you should never sacrifice your aesthetic to try and prove a point. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has to make sense with your spirit. Like, don't support Black-owned businesses because you feel like you have to. Support it because it's something you should do. You know what I'm saying? It should be normal. It should be a part of your,
your life.
Everyday life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm going to make a sacrifice today. It shouldn't feel that way. So with that being said, I took it upon myself to start supporting Black-owned businesses. And I made a challenge where I would eat at a Black-owned restaurant every day during Black History Month.
Wow.
So this is 2019. I didn't really promote it like that. It was for me. Because this is a me thing.
It's a me thing. Yeah.
It's a me thing I got to get. Right? Before I could ever tell anybody else that you should try it, I need to try it first. I've always been that type of person. So I did it in 2019. I learned a lot. It was kind of challenging to a certain extent, because you just learned a lot of things that is missing from the culture when it comes to Black-owned restaurants, and you also learn a lot of things about yourself.
Of course.
And so I did it in 2019, and then we did the video for Black-owned the song, and we added the places that I went to the end credits, because I also did the video in about 3 or 4 different Black-owned establishments also.
Wow.
Because once again, I believe in when you're not good at something yet and you want to be. sometimes you just got to throw yourself in there.
You got to just lean in.
Just go in. You know what I'm saying? And, everybody doesn't believe that and everybody can't do that. But I'm going to tell you that you can't say that you can't do something until you try and do it. Right? Sometimes to the most extreme version of that try. And so 2020 came around, and a couple guys who I was working with prior to Black History Month, we was kind of just working on, once again, I was adding that element of team to help me with this rollout, because this album meant a lot to me for the Black Filter album. So I brought up the Black Owned Food Challenge that I did during Black History Month. Mm-hmm. And they was like, well, why don't you tape it better or shoot it better, per se, or add more camera work to it? And I basically took them up on it. I hired different camera people in different cities because it was getting kind of like pricey to
fly people out.
The same person around everywhere. It was kind of better to just hire people in that city. So I employed different brothers and just all different races of people actually to shoot it, because a lot of people they felt good doing something for the Black community, mm-hmm. like just in general, especially during Black History Month. And so we did. Let's say I did 25 restaurants that 2019 out of 28 days. I think 2020 was a leap year, so it was like 29 days.
Yep.
And I think I did like 24. So it was like 10 different cities or something of the sort. 24 different restaurants.
Wow.
Taped it. I think we ended up with like 26 episodes because I shot some on phone. And I ended up pitching that to a company that I was working with, and they took interest in it because I went and did my homework, and I realized that if you check the Food Channel or Food Network, you'll realize like I really went down the rabbit hole and watched it all day, mm-hmm. one day, like all day.
And you wanted to prove a point.
It was like, wow, it's nothing that's just solely dedicated to Black-owned restaurants, and I was like, man, I just spent 2 years doing this, and I went to a lot of places. Mm-hmm. And because I do it and I made it intentional in my life, even outside of Black History Month, I'm always like, where are the Black-owned restaurants?
Yeah.
I got to partner up with a company called Eat Okra. That's
mm-hmm.
an app.
Yep, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? That shows you where the Black-owned restaurants are, and no matter where you are in America. So it kind of keeps me on the swivel or the hunt for a new Black-owned restaurant. So I kind of just put it first. And, now this is our third year, and I'm doing it now. Today I had Bay's Chicken in Portland. I had to do it, what I'm saying, because the places closed here early in Portland. So I didn't want a chance of trying to find a Black-owned restaurant after 10 o'clock.
After 10.
I went ahead and did Bay's Chicken.
You weren't going to find no food.
It's going to be tough. But, yeah, man, I challenge anybody to do it. And I'm not telling you that you have to be Black to do it. I think that is just you. It'll be interesting. You get to learn a lot of different things. I love talking to the owners about like what made you own your own business or want to do it, or how did you get there, and also understanding that there's so many different layers and levels of Black cuisine.
Yes.
Not just comfort food or soul food. You know what I'm saying? There's Black-owned tofu spots. Well, you know what I'm saying? I just had a Black-owned Thai place in New York when I was just there 2 days ago. So it's been very amazing, and we have a meeting with a TV company for our second pitch for the show coming up in the next 10 to 14 days. And I'm looking forward to it. What I'm saying? It's really dope, man. It's really dope.
Man, Trinidad, it's been great to really hear like this journey. Yeah, y'all show some love, because that's crazy. It's been really great to hear this journey that you've been on, and how you're just only adding. You're only adding to the things that you do. And we just want to say thank you for joining us here tonight. Thank you for sharing your story. And we can't wait to see what you do next, man.
No, I just want to tell everybody, first of all, thank you for coming out and listening to me talk. The things that I say it from the most purest part of my heart. And, I'm just always down to tell you the truth. The truth is allowed me to be at the place that I'm at. And believing in myself is something that I have to do, and you have to do it in order to get that thing that you haven't conquered yet. The things that you do effortlessly, you've already beat that challenge. The things that and your potential is that thing that you're still, you need to add some discipline, formula, do your homework to get it. So I challenge everybody in here, not just with the Black-owned food challenge, but with a you challenge for yourself to, attack those things that you really believe that you deserve, whether that's monetary or, spiritual or whatever that is, man. It's a few things that you need to change in your life in order to really see it, and don't make excuses. And also, the one thing I did say I was going to say to everybody in here is always remember, no matter what today feels like, tomorrow can be different.
Woo! Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you, John.